Right Pack Radio, a podcast produced by Winding Trails Media, for writers, by writers.
Writers, agents, and publishers, for the first time since the Gutenberg Press, find themselves lost in a maze of mystery as technology alters the shape of the publishing industry. Searching for Answers is a group of writers throwing pop culture, writing, and publishing into a crucible of clarity, passion, and humor. This group is the Right Pack.
Welcome back to Right Pack Radio. This is your host and producer, David Allen Lucas, author of Crazy Things, currently working on a knife fighting book and a science fiction novel. No, they do not relate to each other. I'm also producer and president at Winding Trails Media and president of St. Louis Writers Guild. And listen for a advertisement at the end for Gateway Con, coming June 2017. Writers Conference, Readers Convention.
Register now.
And with us today is, of course, my lovely co-host.
Hi, I'm Kathleen Kayembe. I write paranormal romance under the pen name Kaseka and Vita, and I have short stories forthcoming from Lightspeed and Nightmare magazines.
Hey! Brad R. Cook, author of The Iron Chronicles, which is Iron Horseman, Iron Zulu, and now Iron Lotus. Please do go check it out. It is wonderful and awesome, and I want you all to buy it. Find it all at bradrcook.com.
Excellent.
My name is Jennifer Stolzer. I'm a children's book author and illustrator. My first fantasy novel is coming out in March. I'm going to have a launch party on March the 25th if you're in town.
Yay!
At Main Street Books in St. Charles. If you're not in town, I'm going to have a soft launch earlier in the month on Amazon, so keep an eye out for that because there's a chance for prizes.
Excellent.
Lee Savage, back from the abyss of college.
Yay!
Author of Erotica for the Truly Wicked, and under the pen name Carrie Lee Williams, a couple of children's books.
I'm Melanie Lucas, and at some point maybe we'll get down to taking care of just one house instead of trying to deal with two, and I'll have time to start writing again. But I'd like to be writing science fiction, fantasy, and nonfiction.
Yeah, right now life's just really fun.
Yeah.
Also with us,
Fedora Amos. I write Victorian whodunits like Jack the Ripper in St. Louis, and my 2016 book, which is Mayhem at Buffalo Bill's Wild West. And I'm also Vice President of Greater St. Louis Sisters in Crime. Perennially so.
Hooray!
I am George Soroy. I am the Vice President of the Missouri Writers Guild. Hope to see you at the Missouri Writers Guild Annual Conference in Columbia, Missouri, May 5th through the 7th. I'm also an author of science fiction for the young adult reader. My completed books, Excelsior and From Parts Unknown, are no longer available at this time.
Oh no!
Because Excelsior and Ever Upward Part 2 of the Excelsior Journey will be coming out in April and May of 2017 under the banner of Aloris Publishing. Also, From Parts Unknown will be re-released as 5 separate books, so by the time 2017 is halfway done, I will have 7 books on the market. So
Wow! Way to make me feel like an underachiever.
I am simply recycling and then just finally adding one new one to the pile. So it sounds a lot more impressive than it really is. But
as he
It's still accomplishment.
tried to make himself sound humble there. Okay, also with us today are 2 special guests. First off, I'm going to start off with the young lady.
Hi, I'm Chanel Etienne. I write science fiction and fantasy.
And also with us today is...
I'm James Young. I write sci-fi and alternate history. My sci-fi novel is An Unproven Concept. My alternate history is Acts of War.
Excellent.
Where can we find those?
You can find those on Amazon. You can also find I nearly said you can find them locally, but then I remember down in St. Louis.
You can also find them in what town? Because we are actually
Topeka. At Art Print Express.
Excellent. Because we do have actually people around the country and around the world who are listening. Which, before we get started, just a reminder to our listeners, we are gearing up for season 4, which will start in March, the very first Sunday in March. So right now, we're looking for what topics you, our listeners, want to listen to. So please, you can either post it on Facebook on our Right Pack Radio page, or if you are so inclined and just really shy, please go ahead and send an email to president@windingtrailsmedia.com. I'll take it there as well. So we do want to hear from
request
you.
an episode entirely on Jin Urso. Sorry.
Oh no!
Just putting that out there.
Okay.
I don't understand this reference.
It's a Rogue One.
It's a Rogue One reference.
Is she your new Rogue One crush?
Yeah. Oh, she's been in.
Okay. We'll talk later. Okay. But what our topic for today, for this Sunday, is going to be the setback in writing. Getting your career restarted, or if you've had to take a break in any way, how do you go about getting things going again? So it's a setback. It's one that's personally very, very close to my heart because that's what I've been doing.
We know why we're doing this episode.
I can't imagine. Actually, if you've followed Right Pack Radio for any of our 3 years, you've probably heard me talk about how I was a caregiver for a parent, and it basically took me off the writing circuit for quite a while. So I'm now finally to a point where I can restart. Have been rewriting. Actually, I'm almost back up to my full my full writing speed, which I know Fedora would totally disagree with having this type of writing speed because she does 100 to 400 words a day.
Today was 400. That's practically a record.
Yay! And me, I'm trying to shoot for 3,000 a day. So, but I'm there.
It makes me tired to think about it.
Yeah, I strap myself down to the chair. There's a reason I have a pillow in the back. Anyway, but so those of you who have not had to take a break, and those of us who have, I assume, I'm looking at Chanel. Thank you. I've got a friend, Chantel. I'm like, that's the wrong name. Sorry, Chanel. Feel free to throw things at me. You might be in the same boat as far as having to take a break. So, thank you, Brad. And James are all offering.
It's aerodynamic.
Wow. I will use my karate to move past everything. Okay. Sorry, way off topic. So, how do you restart? Do you go back to stage one, just like any other writer who's brand new to it, start trying to get a blog out there, or do you go into different directions? Please, Kathleen, what's your thoughts?
I think this sounds like a couple different topics from what you just said. There's the resuming as a writer after you haven't been able to write for a time. So there's the whole getting back into the habit of writing. But there's also, if you've had to put your writing career on hold,
Yes.
getting back into the more career-oriented tasks of being a working writer.
Actually, it's both. You're right on top. You're right on target there too.
I think the big thing is you have to realize that your network should still be there. I mean, unless you're a reason why you weren't able to get back into writing is you pulled a Tom Hanks and went away for 5 years. You only speak volleyball now. The big part is to start with your network. I mean, the game will have changed. Whether you take a 3-month break or a couple of year break, the marketing and everything else changes so much. You're going to have to figure out where things are at. You're going to have them reset your parameters for you.
I completely agree. I would also say that there is no one solution. We're going to probably throw dozens of them at you today, but there isn't a guidebook, a checklist, or anything like that you can do to get back into writing. It's going to be whatever you decide works best for you. The reason I say that, you mentioned a blog or something like, well, a blog's one way to probably go to get writing again, but certainly not the only one. Sitting down and writing every day, that's a good way to start. But where you take that project and what you do with it and everything, that can have huge variances.
Just to kind of dovetail on to what Brad was talking about, another element when it comes to trying to get the muscles going again when it comes to writing is not so there's blogging, obviously, which is also a good thing, but also just journaling for yourself, because when you're blogging, you're basically like putting that word out there, whatever you're writing. But if you're journaling, it's just for yourself. It's just basically just kind of going down in the basement and doing like a bunch of jumping jacks and making sure that everything is flowing in some way. And then once that's done, then you can start blogging to really kind of just see, to see what it is, what your words are for when you go send them out into an audience.
Now I'm going to say something really fast. I'm going to go to Lee next. And that is one of the things I learned. I've taken a couple vacations, a couple week-long vacations this year towards the end of the year. Or sorry, trying to figure out when this is airing. We could say 2016,
There you
just
go.
in case this is airing after that. And it realized it takes some time to get back into the groove of things. Even though I never quit writing, yeah, my speed really slowed down because of lack of time to write. So just in case anyone's out there who is in the same type of boat, don't beat yourself up. It took me a good week. Of course, that's when the vacation ended, but it took me a good week to get really the flow going.
And I want to say probably one of the biggest fears is if life throws something at your way and you do have to take a step back, is that your fans are going to leave you. I think a big thing, and this is something I'm trying to do because I'm in college and I have had to step back from writing anything new, is if you stay in contact, just update them. Like, I will post on Facebook, hey, I passed my exam, yay. And that engages them and lets them know I'm still there. I'm still in college, so no new work is coming out unless they want to read the paper I had to write for nursing theory, which I don't think they want to read. So, because it's very dry and there's no sex, so boring. But I think the big thing is communication with your peers out there. So that way when you do come back, you're not starting from the bottom anymore. You do have those loyal fans will stay there. They will wait and they understand you have a life. But you've kept them in the loop, and you haven't just tossed them to the side.
Hey, to dovetail off that, the school, I'm laughing because that's pretty much going to be me this next year. I'm in the middle of finishing my dissertation on history. The thing I think that you also have to do, both the keep in touch, but also make sure you're healthy. Mm-hmm. A lot of what is going to throw you for a loop for a sustained amount of time is going to be the kind of thing that you probably should. Everybody sits there and says, well, I don't want to go see a therapist. There's nothing wrong with going to see a therapist or going to see a mental health professional if you've had like a death, you've had a serious traumatic event happen to you. If you lost a leg, no one would say, I don't want to go see a doctor. Well, if you lose a loved one or you have something, heaven forbid, happen to you that leads to trauma, there's no reason why you shouldn't go see a mental health professional, do what you need to do, and get healthy with that first. Don't rush back. As Lee said, your fans will be there. And they will know, especially if something horrible has happened to you, they'll know.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Well, this is all well and good, but
shields up,
double front.
What if, like me, you were stopped by a medical issue and literally could not be online, so no communication with fans, no writing that was not by hand for years of your life?
You're not
What
supposed
do
to
you
like
do?
this.
No, I like the fact you're bringing this up because there is that situation where you may not be able to be in communication.
There's the relearning how to be able to write again because there's a lot of rust that is accumulated over years of not being able to write in your natural habitat, so to speak. But there is also the how do you restart a writing career that you've literally let crash and burn because you couldn't do anything otherwise.
And let me add to that. And especially if you were on the cusp, or at least appeared to be on the cusp of being able to go to the next stage for that career, it really does make it even more scary, tangibly frightening. So, go ahead.
I would say that in that case, without knowing what it was, but...
Carpal tunnel. Can't type.
Next to being an artist, that is a writer's worst nightmare.
Oh, it is.
Yeah, that's almost like you've been cursed.
Mm-hmm.
I would say in that case, you've got to sit there and, you've got to assume, okay, I have to totally relearn everything, and you may have to start completely from the beginning and say, okay, what did I do before? When I did that before, what worked, what didn't, and this is where I go, when I say networking, I mean your fellow authors, and I'm like a group like this. Hey guys, last 6 months I've been out, can't even touch a computer. What's changed? Now, given what's changed, what do I need to do? If you were having someone starting brand new, just basically assume you're starting at zero. You're not, but just assume you are. what would you do? What would you suggest to them? And then start with that. And that to me is because a medical thing. I know an artist or an author who he got stroke,
Yikes.
and we're talking, came close to dying. Had to relearn everything. I think he said he was out for 4 years, and he said even when I was out for 4 years, he did not come back. He's like, I am not. I'm about 90% mental capacity. There are parts of my storyline I've completely forgotten. They're gone.
Oh.
That part of the brain is gone. But what he learned is he was able to reconstruct basically with he had some his beta readers and everything else. But as far as his career, again, the networking. Hey, I've been out for 48 months. What's changed? Oh, by the way, Amazon now has these new features. Oh, okay. Because he was starting with the first part, Smashwords and everything else. He missed pretty much everything that's happened with like self-publishing for the last 4 years and the various iterations of Amazon.
Well, I hope he was pleased when he returned them.
Oh yeah, no, it's well pleased and
Intimidating.
So it sounds like a certain amount of reaching out to your old contacts is
Yes.
necessary and research into the market as it is now for
Yes.
rebuilding your career as a writer.
And-
Go ahead. I've got 3 things to throw in there real fast, very brief, and I'll turn it over to you real fast.
And
Never,
Yeah.
just real fast. Sorry. One, that's also why, as James just said, groups of writers are good to network with. St. Louis Writers Guild, for example, or any other guilds or groups out there. That's one reason to be a part of them. Number 2, I know of one author. Actually, I know of 2 authors who were very successful. One's really successful. One is successful with dictation, but does not work for everybody. Sidney Sheldon was the one extremely super successful enough to actually hire somebody to record shorthand of the dictation. The other person I know uses Dragon. Doesn't work for everybody. I forget. Oh, yes, I remember the third one. If you've done like what I do, which is you've got a toolbox for your writing, that toolbox is still there. As far as the marketing stuff, it may be out of date, but all of your writing resources are still there at your fingertip. So that's one leap that you have ahead of somebody brand new. And I really recommend you do create your own toolbox if you have not started to do so.
I think George is before me.
Okay.
I was actually going to mention the same thing that you did regarding the dictation. Like that would be something to just kind of have as notes for different projects and everything to go for once you've been able to attack the keyboard once again. And another element that really helps to kind of just kind of get the gears turning again is to verbalize into your recordings like everything that you're feeling, from what it is that's holding you back, like what it is that what it is that the frustration of not being able to do this, just using that as material to later be used in a blog or a journal or whatever like that. One of the great things you mentioned the toolbox. It goes right to Stephen King's On Writing.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the great parts of that whole book was when he talked about dealing with his own addictions. And that took him out of the game for a period of time, to the point where he did not want to write because he was afraid of what he was going to write without any sort of stimulant, to go with him. But he said that once he gave it a shot and everything, once he checked to make sure the electricity was still running and that the furnace was still generating heat, then slowly but surely he was able to get back into his rhythm. So just the fact that he was able to talk about that he was able to kind of take us on that journey, that in itself is a great success story, because it shows what that anyone is susceptible to any sort of setback such as that.
What I wanted to add was on the basis of rebuilding your fan base. Once you've got everything going again and you're having to start fresh, new profiles and everything, reach out to your author friends again that are similar in how you do, and see if any of them will cross-promote you. Many of them will. See if they have blogs, if they'll post you up to help rebuild some notoriety for you again. Also, just rebuild your friend base of other authors that are similar to you that are online, because over that some of them will, without trying to poach their friends will find you on their own because they seek out similar authors as well. And that's a way to just start to rebuild that base again and start to get some new fans and maybe some better fans actually.
Yeah.
You never know.
Going with that same point, and then there's another one that just came to me. With your fellow authors, a lot of I always tell people, I mean, I'll help just about anybody in the same genre. I mean, I don't care. If I can make it work, I will. Like recently, there's a British author he's in my same genre, Chris Natal. I mean, he writes sci-fi, he writes alternate history. Actually, Chris writes just about everything. He's very prolific. But we recently just did an agreement where we put 25 pages of each other's book in the back of our books.
Nice.
So,
That's cool.
because he does alternate history, but he does because mine is basically a Nazi victory over Great Britain, but then you have a war with the United States. His is a Nazi victory, period. As in, his book is 2015 and the Nazi Empire is falling apart. But we have the crossover, and that works. And the second part of that is, depending on how big your back catalog is, putting out a free book. I mean, there are people who are both into that. I think that it works. If you have like 8 books before you had to hang it up, making your first book free, I've seen people pull it off. You make your first book free, you promote it on Book Barbarian, ENT, all the other book public or promotion sites. Roll those dice. Those are usually about 400 or 500 people who get it, and even though Amazon's always tinkering with the algorithms, you shoot into the top 100 of a genre, that's a self-licking ice cream cone for a couple of weeks.
Self-licking ice cream cone.
So, to use a quote from Smallville, believe it or not, but if I'm following your advice correctly, risking everything is better than holding on to nothing. So, roll the dice.
It's not quite that dramatic. I mean, releasing your book, like releasing a free book, is a really great way for anyone to generate, not just starting your career off, but what it is it's a way of reminding everybody what you did. You know, reminding everybody, this is what I write, here it is, and giving it away for free, especially if it's the first one in a series.
Yep.
Then you're going to push the rest of that series. Yeah, it's a great way to kind of regenerate and restart and kind of keep going. And beyond that, it's just a great way for authors themselves to begin to market themselves.
Okay. And I was going to say, I mean, if you look at it, and using the 8-book series as an example again, so you have 2 people buy your book for free. If you only get 2 people who like the whole series not to buy the whole thing, you just sold 16 books. Have that happen every day.
Yeah.
That the results speak for itself.
Yeah. So, go ahead, Kathleen, please.
Does anyone else want to talk more about the whole writing career aspect of restarting, or should we switch gears?
All right.
Go for it.
Well, I had a traumatic event, which was the death of my husband. And I didn't stop writing. I kept that up. The barrier was somewhere else, perhaps in my anger. At any rate, I could not seem to send out anything, not a query letter, not a short story to a magazine, just nothing. And finally, I just said to myself, you just simply have to do it. Take a note from Nike's book, just do it. And so I sent out one of the worst stories that I've ever written. Probably is the worst story. It was a zombie story. And I do not write zombie stories. In fact, I don't write good short stories of any kind. But I sent it out and got a rejection. And that kick-started everything else so that I could go back to being more or less what I did before.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing.
Was it sort of a symbolic zombie story?
Maybe.
It brought your dead motivation back to life?
Maybe so. I don't know. I don't remember it. It's something I put very far out of my mind.
I have burned all the copies.
Outside of this, you will never find a copy of it. No.
Do you know what in that situation allowed you to kind of be like, okay, I have to just do it? Was there anything kind of instigating that, or was it just kind of, it's time?
Just time. I'd gotten most of the practical stuff out of the way. And there is so much friggin' practical stuff that it's just overwhelming.
Mm-hmm.
But eventually you get through it, you know. And then it's time to go back to being you.
Well, it's an important note also in that anecdote to show that you gave yourself time to deal with the practical stuff first.
Mm-hmm.
It was, it's just if not more important to the writer to have a certain amount of peace and not pressure about going back to writing.
That's true.
James was saying you need to be healthy.
Yeah, that's
You know,
having my father passed away back in 2009, and I was in the middle of classes, and I remember that was a case of his was not unexpected. I mean, he had beaten 6 months. He was lasted 6 months longer, but he had leukemia. But it was still a case of, whoa, okay, here's a shock. And on top of that, my niece had passed away in September. He had passed away in November. 2 shocks back to back. But the thing that I realized is, in some ways, concentrating on my studies, and I was writing fiction at the time. I hadn't published anything yet, but doing some of that was a catharsis. In that, you know, the when you had something like that happen, I mean, same was like when I was at school, my best friend died. You know, he shot himself. There was still a catharsis to do work on fiction somewhat. And that part of it is something where if you find joy in writing, you will still find some release in doing it, perhaps. I mean, maybe it'd be something that'll never see the light of day, but just do it.
I think that's a good segue into the more how to get back into writing itself. I have a friend, MJ King, who's a writer, and her father died, and she was in charge of taking care of the estate and doing all the legal everything. And it seemed like a headache, like a huge headache, like a years-long headache, on top of which she was grieving for her father. And she didn't write the way she had before for a year or two. And she was worried she was not going to be a writer anymore. She was not going to get it back. But she did. She's writing a lot now. She's writing consistently. She's publishing. And when carpal tunnel happened and basically shut me off of the internet and the computer for years, I kept thinking of Mel and how she had to let herself take that time and be kind to herself about it so that she could process what had happened, and that the writing would come when it was time for it to come back. So that really helped me when I ended up having to take a break.
Yeah, to borrow a term that somebody else used, there's sometimes a lot of rust on your talent and on your abilities, but that's there. You have that. You have that gift, or insanity, which we call writing.
Arrogance.
The ability to
The arrogance of
arrogance is fine too, but it's there.
Yeah.
It's there. That fear is very realistic, but it's there. So, go ahead.
George said earlier, get back into the rhythm of things, of writing. I know how I've done that as a writer. I felt kind of like an excavator digging up old habits I had that I had no idea were really good writing habits. But like, what about the rest of you who've had to take a break from writing, basically? How did you get back into it?
Well, with me, I was basically just kind of digging up old stories. I was doing my own little bit of excavating, the same thing. I was basically just kind of digging back into a lot of stuff that I had written, like different short stories or different short scripts or whatever, and just seeing what can be culled from that, and just trying to basically repurpose it into something completely different. There was a trilogy that I wrote when I was a freshman in college that these days, like, I would never show anyone, but I took those. But what I did was, before I went ahead and took a lighter to it, I grabbed a lot of different characters and everything, and just like, okay, you, and you guys are going to come with me for this whole new adventure, and completely repurpose those characters, and now they're from Parts Unknown.
Can I please just say, never destroy your writing. Oh my gosh, everything is useful. He took something that, like, I could never have done. Still, I've never written a trilogy. I haven't finished a novel yet, so kudos to you. Anyway, he took something that he was like, oh, it's definitely going under the bed or in a bonfire, and he took things out of that were useful for newer stories. So writing is always going to be useful. It's always going to be better to keep it than not. Unless you wrote, your memoirs as a spy during, World War II, in which case you need to burn the hell out of that. You're going to get caught.
Definitely don't be able to have to kill everybody who read it. But I'm going to toss this over to
You're
you
right.
two.
Murder is better
real
than
fast.
burning your stuff.
But I was going to say, I'm glad to see I'm not the only one who's burned his past work. Literally. Literally.
You want to go first? You want me? Okay, I'll
You
go.
go ahead.
So as far as speaking of setbacks, well, you say that my sister deleted. I had one complete set of stories, and she's probably gonna listen to this. Yes, Catherine, I have forgiven you.
The rest of us are still out.
It was one of those things. She was just too cheap to buy some 3.5 discs for mom's processor, and she even said the word. She's like, "Well, it's not ever gonna become anything anyway."
Ooh, ow.
It's not your property.
Owie.
So, and she'll probably swear she's listening to this. I never said that. Yes, you did. That's the great thing about this. It's a one-way conversation. If I disappear in January, you'll know what happened. So, but no, what it is. So I had one hard copy, and my friend lost it.
Oh my goodness.
But
Oh no.
what I learned from that is, one,
Make backups?
funny you should mention that. Yes, that was a lesson. It's been years. It's been over 20 years. But it was one of those. It was still, having recently found the back half, which is all that was saved. I still looked at it, and the thing that you can learn from some of your past writing is you can see how far you've come.
Yes.
I mean, you look at things and you're like, oh man, show not tell much. Wow, that's a really wonderful dialogue that lasted a half page. I mean, things like that. It's very much, that is at least one purpose old things can save. And still, you can use some of those characters later down the road. I mean, even totally different genre, but you can say, okay, I actually did a decent job of character development. You're going to come now 2,000 years in the future to a space novel, and you're still going to be the same fighter pilot. So, we'll go from there.
Well, I don't have a traumatic story about
traumatic enough for all of
things.
us.
Yeah. So I feel like the puppy dog in the room. The worst thing that happened to me is I lost my ball. But
You're a guy, that'd be a much different story.
that is a very traumatic episode in many dogs' lives.
Losing
In
the
which
ball?
case,
Never mind.
yes.
Oh wait, that goes two ways, doesn't it?
That is a code. But
But you gained a code.
Welcome to the bar.
Wow. Moving on. Go ahead. Jen's
I'm-
actually turning red, just for the record.
I'm so excited to release Threadcaster
That's
next
why
year
you're
because this book I've been stopping and starting on for 10 years for various reasons. The first reason I stopped and started on it was I started pre-planning it, like I'm a plotter, so I need to get all that stuff out first. I started doing that while I was in college, and I didn't have time to work on it then. And then when I got out of college, I used Nano as an excuse to start writing it. So, and that's one example. Something like NaNoWriMo that comes by every year. It's the first year I'd heard about it, and I said, you know what? I probably won't make it because I was still in school. Nano, yeah. So I probably still won't make the what?
National Novel Writing Month. She wanted you to say it.
Okay.
Sorry.
You're welcome.
Every November, 50,000 words, 1 month.
Done. Go ahead. Keep going.
I didn't win that year. It didn't matter because I started writing it. I threw all that stuff out too because it was garbage. But all the writing is important. So it laid a groundwork that needed fixing. And when I went back to it again, I didn't make those mistakes over again. But I went back to it again, 5 years later. And the reason why I went back to it then was because I went to the Missouri Writers Guild conference and I started learning about publishing. And I had my first in-person pitch with an actual agent, and she showed actual interest. And that kick-started writing there. I'd stopped for a while because I'd hit as far as I thought I knew, and then I learned more. There's so much. I wrote on that until I finished the first draft, and I started querying it. And I stopped writing it again because it wasn't ready to be queried, but I queried it anyway. And it was discouraging. And I didn't want to deal with it for a while. So it got to sit by itself for a while. I did another revision, tried to query it again. It sat by itself for a while when no one wanted that version. And I feel like I was delayed to the point that now I can publish it self-publishing, and the world has changed so much.
True.
That if I tried to self-publish it back in that first draft where I first stopped, after, with a whole book, I would be disappointed in it because I wouldn't have the opportunity to revise it those extra couple times. And I wouldn't have all of the tools available to me now, or the confidence and education that I've gotten 10 years out from starting this book. So I've stopped and started on Threadcaster for so long that now not only am I smart enough to know that it's never going to be perfect, and that in 10 years I'm going to look at it and say, oh, what a cute toddler, watch it bump into walls. But at least I now have the opportunity to put it out. And I've been revising through it again, and I've practically rewritten it from the ground up. I came here today having left a chapter half written because I decided the whole thing needed to be thrown out and written from scratch. This is 4 chapters from the end of the book. This is my most recent stuff on this book.
And no pressure, you're going to be ready by March.
Yeah, it will be. No, it'll be ready by March. I'm going to have this revision done by the end of the week.
Excellent.
And my goal, because little goals, my goal in this one is to have it, the final chunk in my editor's hands by the first of the year so that I can start working on the edits that they've already done in the first 2 chunks, because I broke it into 3 for editing. I mentioned this on other episodes. It has nothing to do with the topic. But stopping and starting, that's a normal writer thing. That's the pulse of writing. You write for a while, you get exhausted, you take a rest. Some people are blessed that they have endurance. They can sit down and write, and those people tend to be novelists, people who have made that their priority. But for those of us who are juggling our lives and school and writing essays, raising families and stuff, sometimes the natural pulse of life is perhaps it needs to take a back seat for a few months, for a year, for a couple years, if that's how that works out. And when you come back to it, you have the groundwork you've already laid. You might not want that anymore because you've changed as a person, because you've changed your perspective, but the foundation's already laid out. Those first 15,000 words that I wrote on Threadcaster, I'm going to read that and laugh someday. It's on my computer somewhere. It's terrible, and I know it is, because I have the outlines to look and see how the story started before. I have an inciting incident now. I did not have one of those in the first. In the first draft, my characters look at each other and said, "Do you want to go on an adventure?" And they say, "Yeah, that sounds like it would probably kill me, but let's do it." And I wish that wasn't verbatim, but it is.
So it started off like a D&D game.
It was.
You were in a tavern, you killed some rats in the basement, you leveled up.
There we go. Time to go on an adventure. But that was what I needed. I just needed to get started. Anything to get started on the book, even if it was not perfect. And it's still not perfect, and it'll never be perfect. But if you need to restart, write some garbage. Fanfiction's great for garbage. Write that.
To go to there, Nano is actually a great way to restart. So at the author extravaganza that we recently had, St. Louis author extravaganza, I was a new writer was directed towards me as my position as former president of St. Louis Writers Guild. I often get sent people who have questions about writing.
Yeah.
Understand.
Acolytes to come sit at your feet and hear your wisdom.
Exactly. I wish, but no. But yeah, so this woman, she's just finished raising her kids. They're now of an age where she can kick them out for some, time. And she wanted to get back into writing, but she didn't know how to start. And so she was asking me all these questions, and she wanted to know a good way of actually gearing up and getting the words on the page. And one of the things I told her about was Nano. And the reason being that Nano forces you to write.
Yeah.
If you're participating, if you're going to do this, if you're going to log in, you know your word counts, you know you have a goal, you have all that kind of stuff right there in front of you, and it can be a really good motivator to start writing. The other one she had an issue with was figuring out which ideas were going to be the good ones. And I was like, that's not important.
Yeah, you got to write them first.
You got to write it. Yeah, exactly. I'm like, you've got to sit down and write and figure it out. And as you start writing, you'll start to realize, I'm like, if you're really wanting to know what's going on, pick up the latest copies that are in your genre, of books. And then you can see what the industry's doing right now, and you can not write towards that, but you can write with that in mind. But Nano is a wonderful way to kickstart any long dormant writing career.
And also, if you're a prize motivated person,
Exactly.
Nano gives you an award at the
They
end.
do give you an award.
So even if those words are useless words to your overall project, you got a badge.
Yes.
Yes, in
You
some
got the gold
cases,
star.
discounts to awesome writer programs.
And t-shirts.
Like Scrivener. This for those who are Scrivener fans who may be interested in Scrivener. The prize for this year's Nano was you got half off.
Wow.
I was actually going to mention that the part of doing Nano also is that if you have a good local media or municipal liaison and group, that is another way that you network. And that here in Topeka we have two awesome ones. Alyssa and Diana Marsh are great, and they're also tied to the local library. If your local library is involved with Nano, that is also a step towards helping your career by going back to that whole free first book. You can put the book back into the library.
Yeah.
And I was going to also say, Jen, I don't find raising a family is that hard. I mean, they're close enough in the cemetery to each other.
I like this guy. Go ahead.
How much practice do you have to do before then, though? I mean, that's dedication to learn the art of necromancy.
Chickens is chickens.
It's chickens, right?
And right now, my writers group that are listening to this podcast is saying, "Oh my God, James."
Hey,
I am still trying hard not to belly
can we
laugh.
keep him?
Since you're dovetailing, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say write-ins are also a great way of getting back into writing. It's basically you get together with a group of writers and you're there to write, not to do other things. So it kind of can force you to get the whole butt in chair aspect of writing as your first priority for a time.
One other quick add-on to the elements of Nano that were discussed. Another great thing about Nano that can really kind of that you can also kind of keep in mind is that trying to write everything perfect the first time is its own setback.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
That is like you always like that's the one thing that always seems to stop people in their tracks is they always want whatever they put down on that page the very first time to be exactly what will be on the printed page when it's out in Barnes & Noble.
No.
That is not the case. No. As soon as you resign yourself to the fact that is not going to happen, as soon as you participate in things like Nano, like to just kind of give yourself permission to write crap. Once you do that, then all of a sudden you're going to get past that setback.
As wiser people than me have said before, the first draft is going to be ugly no matter what, so just write it.
Great
I'm not
books
gonna say
are
it's a
not
shitty
written,
first
they
draft.
are rewritten.
Yes.
Yes.
Honestly, I can say, like, aside from Nano in general, just making you write like your hair is on fire, just to get words out there, get your word count up, like that's really helpful, and that helped me. But specifically, because I am so competitive, like I found that Word Wars specifically helped me actually just make myself write. Because if I'm competing against someone and I have to buy them a cup of coffee, if I lose to them in my word count, guess what? I'm going to beat the crap out of you with my word count. And it doesn't matter that it's crap. It doesn't matter that it's god awful, and it probably has so many clauses in it that you can. Oh God, I don't even
Have
want
a
to think
Santa
about
Claus in it?
it. Actually, yes.
More claws than a pack of velociraptors.
Mine. But yeah, that's like if you're really competitive, that's one way I did it, was just make yourself write to beat someone.
I love that you said that. If you're really competitive, work with that basically. That's one of the things that getting back into writing, I've had to learn what worked for me before and what still works for me now and what doesn't. So part of the joys of excavating my old habits is in some cases finding out I've reinvented the wheel. Like the other last month I wrote up an order of basically I realized I want to get this written, but I also want to do this, but I can't do them at the same time, so I need to do this, and then the next project can be this, so now it's okay to ignore that one. But also I want to get this done by this time, and this done by this time. I guess I need to order them out, and then after I finished, I realized, oh goodness, Kathleen, you used to do this all the time. That was how you kept track of everything and managed to get things finished. you couldn't have just gone back to Kathleen. Why?
That's why the toolbox is so important.
Ugh, like, just do what works for you, though. I stopped doing that because for a long time, the only writing I could do was by hand. So having that kind of goals list kind of thing was only going to make me feel horrible because I couldn't type things. So now that it's useful again, I pulled it back out. But there are other things like spreadsheets that I don't keep anymore. I just keep everything in a document and it lets me know I'm doing enough work. So time has changed how I work, and I'm going to use that as long as it works, and when it doesn't, I'm going to do something else.
But for those of us who have not, that the idea of organization terrifies us, and the idea...
Cancer.
No, not necessarily, because you and me. It's like, I gotta know what's gonna happen, but filling in blanks and charts and Excel sheets and stuff, get away from me.
No, can't do it at all. So it's almost like I can't imagine that working out very well for somebody who has been out of the game long enough to just get scared by the idea of writing. But the one thing, like, if you have so many projects and so many things that are up in the air and juggling and trying to figure out where they fall, what makes you excited? Like, what are you excited by? Like, write on what excites you, because it's going to have that aura of excitement to it. And it's going to be better than if you just were like, I have to write on this Velociraptor story, and I'm so not excited.
I love you did Velociraptor hands when you said that.
Well, I've been waiting, but you kind of opened the door, so I'm sorry, I'm going to jump in real fast. Going back to Kathleen's question, probably a good 15 plus minutes ago. You talked about excavating your old stuff, how do you, whatever. I set out originally to never write anything along the lines I was writing again. That was my original thing. I basically was blowing up. I didn't want to see any of my stuff. And honestly, as far as burning my previous material, which I did years ago, after a hard drive, this is going back to an Apple IIe, when I still was in college. Yes, I know I feel old now. It blew, the hard drive melted and burned the disk, which had all my poetry plus term papers and novels on at that time. So I was kind of used to the whole entire things blow up and move on. And characters do come back.
You should not be that used to acts of God.
Acts of a computer god, you know, life happens. But
the tech god is very famous.
As I was looking at what would I restart with, and this was recent. This is back in November of 2016. I looked at, okay, I'm starting fresh again. I don't want to think of my other ideas, blah, 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 blah. And stupid here, yes, I call myself stupid, tossed on the JJ verse of Star Trek.
Oh, the JJ, not the JJ. Okay.
Yeah.
The JJ versus Star Trek is a whole different
and that's a
genre.
whole different problem.
It's a whole different problem.
JJ are very
But it
familiar.
is out there if you want to find it.
But when I started writing science fiction, and I had this one idea, in which I'm actually going back to, and this is one I'm writing on.
Gasp.
Star Trek was always my frenemy. I loved Star Trek under Gene Roddenberry, but I always felt like what I was writing was Star Trek, and that's not what I wanted to do. Clearly, because A, copyright, but B, you know, it's already out there. I wanted to be something separate.
You could be a writer for Discovery.
Yeah, I could, but
It's not like Paramount's lawyers hunt people.
Yeah, yeah, we won't talk about that. Anyway,
They just use long rifle.
it's called Axonar. But anyway,
exactly.
That's where I was going.
I love Axonar, by the way. But so I watched that, and I happened to listen to. If you ever listen to the music of the Star Trek: The Motion Picture, there is a second CD which has Gene Roddenberry talking, also some of the actors talking, and Gene talking also with Isaac Asimov.
Excellent CD,
Excellent
by the
CD.
way. Yeah.
And I happened to listen to it right after I got done watching the Jar Jar verse of Star Trek.
Tell us how you really feel.
By the way, JJ, if for some reason you're actually listening to it, you knocked the ball out of the park with Star Wars. That is definitely your area. Star Trek,
He'd
I'm
tell
really
you
mad
that
at you.
too.
Yeah.
He would tell you that 100%.
Yeah, but I got done. I finished listening to it, and I'm like, "Hey, idiot! This idea of concept is still inside your head. Go for it. JJ has given you the permission to write what you want to write, which is highly influenced by Star Trek, admittedly, but it's also highly influenced by the U.S. Coast Guard. We see military science fiction. We're going to war. We're going to go fight in wars, and this is how war is going to affect us. But there's so much more to the military. Search and rescue, drug interdiction, interdiction of immigrants, or being able to save people out at sea. Now let's put that in space, because we know if we go to other worlds, we're going to end up in the same type of situation. So that's what I'm working on.
He's going to stop the spice from flowing.
No! The spice is always slow!
Yeah. How'd that go for House Harkonnen?
Go for it.
So, it's the while you're mentioning the Star Trek, remind me. I mean, I have a friend she's watching Star Trek, all of them in this entire year, and she's blogging about it.
I like her. Give me the blog. Go ahead.
TheProlificTrek.com is the name of the blog. The reason, and it's hilarious because you mentioned the JJ verse, and she had a long time problem with the JJ verse. I won't steal her thunder, but she came to terms with it. But the thing that went on with talking about other people's universes, and one of the things I talk about, and I might get to it when we do the rules, is you can always write something similar. Because really, there's people who believe that there's only like 7 stories I've ever been told. They're all variants of 7.
Yeah, there's nothing new under the sun.
Yeah, so to me, I mean, as long as you scrape off the NCC, as well as, don't have, like, people with pointy ears, you'll probably be fine. Or else call them L's. I mean, it worked for Gary Gygax. But that's, if that's what works for you, and that'll get you back into the game, that also is a thing. I mean, there's plenty of sites that will take fanfic. There's also the fact that scrape off the serial numbers well enough. 50 Shades of Grey. You can go ahead and start your own universe.
50 Shades isn't a good example because she ended up having to pay reparations for that.
Yeah.
But she still made a whole lot of...
She made a crap ton of money.
She made a lot of money.
Yeah. And she's got another movie coming out.
Well, she should
movies, a bunch of movies.
Her mistake was actually
talking
admitting
about
to
it.
it.
Yeah.
That was
She
hard
should
not
have
to admit,
scraped
though.
a little bit harder
Yeah.
to get that serial number off.
It's kind of like Murder 101. People always, or as I say, body disposal 101. Murder 101, everybody can pass. It's body disposal. Murder 102, people flunk and go to jail. Part one is do not talk about it. If you steal from someone else's universe, don't even. The person in the mirror says, "I can't believe you did that copyright infringement."
WPR does not condone stealing.
I don't know. I would say those are actually the first 2 rules.
for next week's episode.
Don't talk about it, and then don't talk about it.
Right.
James is not going to be invited back for WPR.
I don't know if my wife wants to say this out loud or not, or I'll just steal her thunder, but she's always given a piece of advice to me, which is, go ahead, do your fanfic, then change it like crazy, and when you can no longer recognize the original source material, you're on target.
Hey, do your fanfic anyway. For all you know, a character is going to be there that you can grab and drag back out. I have original characters from fanfics that are in Threadcaster. I'm not telling you which ones.
Brad, and then...
Well, to bring this back to other ways in which you can kickstart your writing, I would actually throw out writing prompts. We mentioned them just a bit ago. They can be a wonderful way because it gets rid of that notion of what am I going to write about? I don't have anything interesting that I want to write about. But then suddenly they go, oh, a guy walks into a bar and a fight breaks out or something crazy like that, and now you suddenly have a writing prompt that you can go for and write a ton on. And you never know what those things are going to spark. So writing prompts can be great, and you'll find them everywhere.
And I just want to mention, if you want to do fan fiction, Amazon now has certain fan fiction that they have licensed that you can do and put up.
Yeah, it's limited on your universes you can write for, but if you're inspired by, what is it, like Veronica Mars and stuff like that?
I think they may even have Vampire Diaries or something. A lot of CW shows are on there, it looked like. I didn't take a big look, but...
Be careful.
I'm interested.
Be careful because they would own any original character you create.
Yeah. What I'm gonna say
read your
is-
contract before you sign up for
I'll
that
turn this over
deal.
to James next, but I'm going to say it real fast. If you really want to see some of the dangers of fanfic, look into Axanar.
Did we have a past show on
Yeah,
fanfic?
we did somewhere back there.
You can look back at past episodes.
That was back in the
last year.
Yeah, it was the
previous season.
Yeah, the lawsuit is still going.
Oh, I thought they settled.
Nope.
No.
They just did discoveries.
They're gonna die on their feet.
So, as far as writing prompts go, while it's being mentioned, it's fresh in everybody's mind. There are apps now that on Apple where you can get, for those who have Apples or iPhones, I don't have Android, but I would assume that they're on there also. You can find apps that will do writing prompts. If that is one of those things where, if you don't have time to get the actual analog books, get the app while you're sitting there, or Christmas dinner and you're all waiting in line for the turkey. Look at the app. Hey, someone comes up with a writing prompt. You're having that third discussion of things that you shouldn't talk about at Christmas dinner. Look at the writing prompt. Keeps you from getting in a fight with your uncle.
Tumblr, Twitter, and Facebook all have writing prompts on them as well.
Yes, search the internet.
Just be careful looking at Tumblr at the dinner table.
Or looking at Tumblr, period, because some of us can get sucked in there and come out hours later wondering how we did the time warp and if we can go back. But I was going to say one of the things that has helped me get back into writing has been writing small bits and saying that everything counts. All the writing you do counts. So if you write letters, that counts as writing. If you write your journal, that counts as writing. It's not just working on whatever story. If you write a doggerel verse, it counts. But fan fiction has been wonderful for me because it has allowed me to kind of already have the setting and the characters there and just kind of explore writing fiction that way for a little while. It doesn't have to be long. And we were talking about networking earlier. One of the great things about writing fan fiction is if you post it online, there are other fans out there and they'll give you instant feedback, and generally it's good feedback, so you'll feel more encouraged to keep on writing.
There's good feedback and there's troll feedback.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Well, the places that I'm thinking about posting fan fiction, there aren't trolls. They keep an eye on that. So
what are the places you recommend then?
Archive of Our Own is my favorite place. archiveofourown.org. It's fan run, fan owned. Fans.
I very much like their color-coded tile category system. In the front of every story, you have a very quick thumbnail that can tell you this is the kind of thing I'm looking for, this is not, and it involves romance types and story types, and if it's finished or not, which is sometimes a really big thing to keep me from starting a story that hasn't been finished, especially if it's part blank of question mark.
It's definitely fan oriented. It's made by people who read fan fiction, and so it has the things that you would want if you're reading it. But you can also on that site lock your stories so that only AO3 people can access them, which is nice if you want some privacy.
That will not keep you from losing your first publication rights, though. Just FYI.
Yeah.
But if it's fan fiction, you don't really have
that is
publication
true.
rights.
Right, you don't.
I want to mention also another thing that you can use is role-playing games. They help you build character development. You can create own little worlds, but you already have kind of a world base to go on. So from that, you just build up, and then you can spin off your own story from that.
Go ahead, James, and then George.
Going on that point, the systems that I like are GURPS and also the D20 system. GURPS, I tell people, it's kind of like Play-Doh. You really can find just about anything to help you build stuff.
I hate GURPS character creation so much.
Oh, okay. I don't use it for character creation because that's...
Sorry.
Yeah, but as far as doing the writing prompts, you can find them cheap at used bookstore. Usually someone's gotten married, had a couple of kids, and the wife is like, I'm going to burn these or you can sell them. That's usually where you'll find them. And a good $5, that'll help you.
Also, too, real fast, if you really don't want to spend any money, you don't want to look online, go to the newspaper and just take two headlines from different sections, mash them together, and see what you can come up with.
Florida man, what has he been up to now?
Florida man is eaten by alligator. Lions at the zoo are jumping for joy.
I saw an example of Florida man that kind of almost does exactly what you said by itself. It was an actual article. It said, Florida man arrested in Los Angeles, not because he's from Florida.
Yeah, right there. Go ahead.
One of my favorite poems I've ever written was because of a prompt. The prompt was take a tabloid article headline and write a story about it or a poem about it as if, but be serious. So mine was about a woman that found a genie in a lamp, and had an affair with it, and I was like, all right, I see you. So there are books that are full of writing prompts, the Writer's Book of Matches I love, and you can find them anywhere. You can text your friends and say, prompt me.
I wrote that book.
You wrote that book?
Yeah. Buy the gin bottle and.
Oh, yes, you did.
Yes, and I'm waiting for you to finish.
Yeah,
to get it out
we all
there.
want to read your book about the
I've heard you read parts of
genie
this
fantasy.
out loud, and I'm like, I want this book.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
It'll come out eventually, hopefully.
We need to talk, sir. Every episode, we're talking.
There's one thing that can also be like a major setback is when you write something, you know that it's not what you want it to be. You know that it's not working, but you don't know what it is that's keeping it from working. That is where feedback comes in incredibly well, because there was I had written a short story back in 2000. It basically had plays like almost like a Twilight Zone type of episode, and it was a little anthology piece. It was so far removed from anything else that I had written, and it got good feedback, but I also knew that the people that could read it could telegraph it not even halfway through the story. They knew where it was going, and so I knew that it wasn't where it needed to be, but I didn't know what to do to change it. So just a couple of years ago, I sent it out to some friends and everything, and I got some very, very good feedback from it. So something like that would really kind of get the gears turning again.
Wait.
Yeah, I just want to say, and that's where you can utilize your beta readers, or other trusted author friends. Sometimes they may not be able to pinpoint exactly what's wrong for you either, but maybe they can give you a general area of this chapter is not working, or you lost me on this page. From this page, something just didn't seem right. And then from there, you can zone in and try to figure out what it is.
Kathleen, final thought.
Well, I was really interested in hearing, Fedora, why you had started sending things out again, because it can be hard to figure out when the time is right to go back into your writing or into your writing career. And a lot of people are really displeased that 2016 has had so many events that were not good. People are calling 2016 a horrible year.
I refuse to do so because I got married.
For me, 2016 has been a wonderful year, because that was when I got my carpal tunnel under control enough that I could start writing. So
And Clarion.
in February, I could write again. I used splints, and my back was in such a way that I could write stories. And I realized Clarion is the Clarion deadline for submission is at the end of this month. And the Amherst Writers and Artists Leadership Training is in September. If I dedicate time to writing now, I can potentially do these things that I have wanted to do for 10 years or more. And that would make 2016 a kind of year of writing and growth for me in a way that I had been unable to do for at least 5 years by that point. So I decided, okay, this is going to be the time. Now that I can do this, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do it hard. And I did. I got into Clarion. I got into AWA. I'm writing consistently now. And, it was time. I tried not to beat myself up about the fallow periods, because every writer has fallow periods where the writing is just not going to happen the same way it used to, or maybe not happen at all. The trick with getting through that, though, was recognizing that it was going to come back. The writing would come back. And as long as I was nice to myself, and maybe just journaled instead of doing what I thought an official writer had to do, that I would be okay. So fallow periods end, and as long as you're willing to get back on the horse when it is time to get back on the horse, you'll be fine.
I think with that, unless Fedora, you want to answer the question? All right. With that, tune in next week for yet another interesting tale in the writing industry, and thank you for listening. GatewayCon? What is GatewayCon? The Gateway to Publishing Conference and Convention, brought to you by St. Louis Writers Guild, is a new, unique experience for writers looking for their work to be either traditionally published, independently published, self-published, or to further their writing career. Coming in June 2017, GatewayCon will provide opportunities for writers to pitch their work to agents, hone their craft regardless if it is genre fiction or nonfiction, and obtain expert critiques. Get to meet vendors and experts who can help your writing get attention. And all writers get their work in front of their audience. Writers will get to network with agents, publishers, and others in your genre. Gateway to Publishing Conference and Convention will be in St. Louis, June 16th through the 18th, 2017. For more information, visit www.stlwritersguild.org or look for GatewayCon on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Tumblr. GatewayCon, opening the gateway for writers to reach their readers. Did you know that Right Pack Radio has an international audience? How would you like to reach that audience in regards to your books, your book services, your author services, or more? Go to www.windingtrailsmedia.com and look under advertising for more information. If you don't have a script, that's not a problem. We will be happy to work with you. Once again, go to www.windingtrailsmedia.com for more information. The new theme songs for Right Pack Radio were written and performed by Meredith Tate. All copyrights remain with her.